You all set up there? Okay, it is now 4 p.m. on July 25th, 2019. I will call the monthly meeting of the Wolfeboro Police Commission to order at this time and invite everybody here to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'll entertain a motion on the consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 27, 2019, as amended.
I believe there were several question marks on some of the things that needed to be identified and corrected.
Yep, I went over those items with Amy. They have been corrected.
Okay.
So as amended, do we have a motion?
Yes.
Motion is made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll do the non-public meetings and non-public. Okay. Chief, if you'd like to proceed with the monthlies, please.
Yes, sir. And before I begin, I do have 2 items for non-public.
Okay.
So we do. There will be need for a non-public session under personnel. So moving on, gentlemen, with the ladies and gentlemen, with the first slide in your slide deck is incidents. There was a 17.85% increase in incidents from 56 to 66, and that's reflective of just summer in Wolfeboro. So, Tom, do you want to have a seat up here, sir? Yeah, right there. We'll be fine. So moving on to the next slide in the slide deck is your background data on offenses. You'll see we had approximately 115 offenses, so multiple violations of law occurring with each one of those 66 incidents that we responded to, and that's common. Arrest year to date, again, another increase, 5.86% increase from 29 to 51. Again, welcome to summer in Wolfeboro, and this is reflective of my comment last month. Both of these slides are reflective of that comment. We've been very busy, and we continue to remain very busy. Gentlemen, the background data, which is complete and uncensored for your review if you had any questions about any of the arrests that were made or locations or the various charges that were forthcoming. Collisions this month, we're up 55%, almost 56% from 9 to 14. Again, reflective of just the very busy summer month. Accidents this period by street name, so you'll see all the usual suspects listed out. There should be no mystery here. Also, by way of explanation, I had occasion to attend the Mumble Strip meeting that was held by the town. I did provide a lot of background data for follow-up discussions with DOT and their engineers at the request of Selectman O'Brien. Very happy to do that. I just need to know how to support the town better on whatever decisions that you gentlemen want to go. But I will just say, for the sake of argument, even though I believe that we have a very, very safe town and traffic accidents obviously have been going in the right direction, which is down. Of course, highway safety is their moniker right now is driving towards zero, which I happen to agree with. That means, we want no crashes. We don't want any collisions. Center Street does remain our, if you will, for lack of a better term, our most dangerous road in Wolfeboro. That's where most of our fatalities occur. It is where most of our serious motor vehicle crashes occur, and rightfully so. It's a long road. There are high-speed portions of that road. The people definitely can get up to what I call highway speed, 55 miles an hour or more on that road. It can be tortuous at times, especially during the long winter months. So for all of these various reasons, and I think, as Selectman O'Brien has pointed out in the past, we have a lot of industry growing in that area. Over the last 10 or so 15 years, you have another number of cottage industries and small businesses that have started up in that area. There's a lot of left turns occurring on both sides of the road. all of this makes that road accident-prone. There should be no mysteries here. The Wolfeboro Police obviously stands ready to support the town in whatever direction they want to go with trying to make our roads safer. We will continue to run speed enforcement patrols out there, and that is our, gentlemen, that is our heaviest patrolled road in town. That is where most of our patrol activity occurs in terms of speed and DWI and drug interdiction occurs on Center Street. So just by way of explanation. But we know speeds are an issue there. We heard the citizens loud and clear. I just want to make that very clear in this public meeting. I heard the citizens with their own voices in terms of the speed-related issues. We will be out there. My personnel will be out there. I will be out there, and we will be addressing those issues as best we can. It may be time, and I'm just going to throw this out there, it may be time for the town of Wolfeboro, certainly between the area of road in question between basically the boat museum, where the boat museum is now through 7-Eleven, maybe to lower that to one constant speed at 40, as opposed to go from 40 to 50, back to 40, up to 50, back to 40 again. Those are policy decisions. I will support whatever the Board of Selectmen wants to do, but I see the logic in reducing that speed limit in that area to 40. But again, that is a policy decision. It isn't anything I'm going to be pushing. But we stand ready to support whatever the town wants to do to make those roads safer. Yes, sir.
Can I speak?
I just had one quick question. With regard to Center Street, it's also State Route 28.
Correct.
Is the state going to dictate the speed? The state would dictate the speed on Center Street because it's Route 28, Route 109. Correct?
It's Route 28.
But it's a state road, so they're going to set the speed, not us.
The state sets the speed. That is correct. What we would do in this particular case is petition the state to lower the speed limit. We can always petition to lower.
Sure.
The state actually has the final say. It's a state-maintained road. It's essentially their road, their highway. They have reserved that right to do that. We do not. That's not one of the 23 enumerated powers that the Board of Selectmen have. So we can always petition. I think the data here is good. Just running the data off the top of my head, I seem to recall that I can't remember what the total was over the last 11 years, but it was in the thousands of motor vehicle crashes we've had on that road.
45.
What was it, sir?
I think it was 845.
It was 845.
Like
total,
that.
so that was through was that for the 11 years on Center
May
Street?
have been for 10. Your 1,000 may have been when you went up to 11, but it was 845 crashes
On Center Street.
on Center Street.
And then within that section of road that we were talking about between the Boat Museum and 7-Eleven, and so of that 8 and change, 487 in that area, so roughly half in that short area for the entire length of Center Street, basically from the Osby line to Pickering Corner. So I would say the data here supports a lowering of the speed limit. But again, that is a policy decision. It's completely up to the Board of Selectmen. I stand ready to support the Board of Selectmen in whatever direction they choose to move down. I do want to echo that I think public safety is very important, and I know the state is trying to help with the rumble strips, mumble strips, but I also do know that it contributes to some issues such as noise pollution and things along those lines. Also, in a discussion I had with our Public Works Director this morning, we were talking about a near-fatal crash that we had out there in 2016, where a woman who admittedly was impaired on various substances had crossed the road and caused, again, a near-fatal, almost a double near-fatal collision. She was later prosecuted for DWI and other charges. But she crossed the center line, the rumble strips were in place, and it didn't wake her up. It did not wake her up. So, like everything else, right, government has to protect the citizens, right? That's the first job of government. But it's a balance, and we have to weigh, the other side of the coin, too. We have to weigh the citizen concerns here, and is this potentially a government overstep in this arena? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answers to those questions, and I'm not going to proffer one, but I just wanted to bring that out while we were talking about crashes. And you have the crash data, so you can take a look at the data. It is in your packets.
Selectman O'Brien?
Yeah, I want to thank the chief for pulling the information together and providing it to the folks. We did have the assistant commissioner of DOT, and we had the commissioner of DOT, and we had politicians, and we had an executive counselor. And I think the message was consistent from all of us. The issue of rumble strips is we have citizens that just, you know, don't think they're effective. And then there's the noise thing. But I think myself and others on the Board of Selectmen are trying to impress upon the state that in that segment of the road, as you would say, from the 7-Eleven all the way in, just go do a sample. Just go talk to the people who run businesses out there and ask them what they see, ask them what they observe, and what they observe is people who are using the speed limit as a suggestion. They go from 40 to 50 to 40, but you know, they're just blazing through. As I sat on the planning board several years ago, someone came to us from the 7-Eleven and said, just look at the little hill coming down you know, from Ossipee, and you just see skid marks of 17,000-pound trucks with trees in them trying their best to stop as someone is trying to slowly go. So our ask of the state is get the speed down. And I don't know how it works. I'm learning that, you know, they have a hole and they have a peg and they try to put a hole and a peg together to, you know, kind of fit things. But the case is not over yet, and I think they're listening to us, which I think is good. Whether we get something done on the speed side, I don't know. But we're going to continue to bang the drum and say that's an important issue. And what you provided was, you know, was the kind of stuff I think that raises the eyebrows of people. In the quality of the report was good. So I appreciate you doing that. There's more to follow on this. We're just not done.
Thank
We're
you. Yeah.
also slugging away on crosswalks, and the state wants to reduce crosswalks. We think it's probably not the smartest thing in the world to do. So we're working on that with them as well.
Well, we always stand ready to help our elected officials and our other fellow department heads in whatever endeavors they're getting into. The police department does collect a tremendous amount of data. We analyze a tremendous amount of data. And that is, you know, that's one of the things that we do. You know, I live, the captain lives in the data. We're always looking at the data. We use the data. We use data-driven operations, right, and DDATs, you know, and I'm sure, Commissioner, you remember DDATs from your days as a police captain, right? That's what drives our operations. It focuses our enforcement efforts. And there's no difference here in the Wolfeboro Police Department. It's just part of modern policing, so we are using it. The radar traffic warning devices that we have, the 2 radar warning signs and the radar trailer, connect. They are fantastic devices. They are absolutely fantastic devices. So aside from working, which they do, those devices definitely work and they slow people down. But they also collect what a lot of people don't realize is they collect a huge data package, huge. And they really help us drill down onto problem areas that we're having. So we're using those devices, those tools, to the very best of our ability to focus on problem areas. So that's why you're going to see police out. You say, well, why are there 3 police officers in this one location at this one point? Well, that's because our data-driven operations are telling us that we have a problem here and we need to address it, and this is how we're going to address it. But that issue may only be, there may only be 3 police officers there for 20 minutes, and then they're going to be somewhere else. Maybe it's 109 East for another hour, you know. So that's the way it really focuses our police operations. I can't state that enough. This is welcome to the 21st century. We're taking full advantage of our technology to make us more efficient. And you're going to hear that again from me as one of my themes, especially as we get ready to go into the 2020 budget season. Look, we're looking at creating efficiencies. When we create efficiencies, I can stave off having to hire more police officers. And it may sound a little counterintuitive, but you know, we're looking at balancing, right? Like I said, balancing the cost against better outcomes, right? We're always looking for better outcomes. So this is one of the ways to do it. So we're really happy to have those tools, and we're putting them to use as best we can. Gentlemen, moving on. The next slide in your slide deck will be traffic stops for 2019. You see a slight increase here, 11.935%, from 154 to 220, so that's traffic stops. Of those 220, we handed out 17 summonses, 17 tickets, right? If you're out there, if you got one of those, I'm really sorry about that. Pay it. But 7.72% chance of getting a ticket, so less than 10%. Less than 10% chance of getting a ticket, and that is because we believe in education as opposed to punitive measures. We want to encourage a dialogue between the officer and the driver, and we want them to understand that it's always better to be safe. Sir.
Thank you for including the last 2 pages in the motor vehicle report, or in the traffic stop report. Saves me from asking you questions about specific incidents that resulted in high dollar amounts and fines. Now that information is right there. And
Yes, if you like that, I will continue to
I do
manipulate
like
the
that.
data. If you like that, I'll continue that as background data. That does answer a lot of questions. You get to see what the fine amounts were and for what reason. So oftentimes, and it was a lot of money collected. I'm just looking at it now, although it's not in my official chief's items. It's over $2,000 worth of fines collected. Of course, the state gets that money. We don't see a dime of it, but there was a lot. That's a lot of penalties in a 30-day period handed out. Gentlemen, next slide in your slide deck is going to be our personnel analysis report. In it, you'll see where the officers are in various areas relative to incidents, assists, arrests, assist and arrest, bookings, orders, citations, crashes, assists at crashes, parking tickets, field interviews, and execution of warrants. This is a snapshot against various pieces of metric that we feel are important that contribute to the officer's activity, so you can see what they're doing. It's broken down by officer, myself included. Just be mindful that certain officers are on the midnight shift and may not have access to those high activity times like the 4 to midnight or the 6 to 2 shift. So, but it does give a snapshot in time as to where we're at, and I think it's a good indication of what everybody's doing. And yes, we do have rotating shifts, so everybody's going to get a bite of the apple. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to go back for a second to what we were talking about before. You're talking about the enforcement numbers of summonses issued by the Wolfeboro Police. However, what are the numbers? Do you receive numbers from the state police?
Never.
Summons? Okay, or
Never.
from the county too?
Typically, the state police, and the same thing with the county, never from the county. Typically, with the state police, they will only take action in Wolfeboro if they see something particularly egregious. If it really happens in their presence, and here's the reason why. So our beloved state police are, they're headquartered in Tamworth. They've got troopers assigned to Belknap County and Carroll County. So Troopy covers those 2 counties. Those are big counties. And they're in the areas that have a fairly large or significant police department, like Conway, like Wolfeboro, like Moultonboro, like Meredith. They're not likely. They're not likely to put resources there because their resources are scarce. Their resources are scarce. They're having some personnel issues. Troopy is still shuttering its doors at not later than 2 a.m. Sometimes they're shuttered by midnight. So they're having some personnel issues. The Sheriff's Department is off the road by 2300. That's 11 p.m. So they're putting their resources where there are not enough police resources. And that's an important thing to remember. So they're not likely to be in Wolfeboro. They're not likely to be in the high density populated areas because those areas are likely to have relatively speaking, a large police presence, right? Not that I would call the Wolfeboro Police Department a large agency, but they do like our Dunkin'. They do. Yes. But doesn't everybody like Dunkin' Donuts? Myself included. So I stand guilty as charged on that. So we do have a number of troopers that live in town. So yes, you are gonna see them. And why? Because Wolfeboro is a beautiful place to live. So you are gonna see them coming to and going to work and coming home from work, but they're not likely to be stopping a lot of cars. They will stop something if it's egregious, but Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've given my full permission to the state police to say, listen, come on in Wolfeboro anytime you want, do whatever it is you need to do, stop cars. You know, in the past, that was not always the case. And there is a law out there that says in a population over 3,500 that the state police need permission from the chief of police to come in and do activity. My position has been the more blue lights, the more cars marked police, the safer we all are. I don't really care if it's a county sheriff, if it's a state trooper, if it's somebody from the FBI, right? If they're in town, they see something, I want them to take action. And that being said, the more police, the safer we are. But again, I think generally, by exception, they're not going to operate in Wolfeboro. They're going to be points north of here, or points west. Gentlemen, moving forward into your monthly activity report for the detective, you'll see that 11 cases were carried over from May. For the month of June, he investigated a total of 3 new cases. The cases below represent all incident reports and arrest reports for the month of June. 2 cases were investigated as misdemeanors. There was not 1 new felony level case this month, and at the end of June, he closed 3 cases from April and May, which is good. And he has he has 8 ongoing investigations presently. I do want to say that Shane has done yeoman's work recently with solving a couple of major incidents, major crimes, and I couldn't be happier. And one of those was actually, since we were talking about radar trailers, and I know the commissioners are aware of this, but we had one of our radar warning signs vandalized. And someone's going to say, who would be that dumb? Who would do something that dumb? And they're out there. And we do have it on video because when I deploy assets, I make sure they're covered by live video. So we do have live video of the culprit doing this. That individual has been arrested. He has confessed, and he will be paying a lot of money for the replacement of that radar warning sign. There will be some serious restitution and public agency reimbursement for the reinstallation of that sign, so I'm really happy to report that, and I think Shane was very instrumental in getting that case solved. So I just wanted to pass that on to you. We did file a claim, gentlemen, just so we know, and we're clear on this, we did file a claim, and Mr. Selectman, we did file a claim with Primex. We have been in touch with Primex. We did tell Primex that we have the culprit arrested. He has confessed, and they're going to be seeking an order through the courts for restitution back to Primex, and we said we would do that. And the reason we do that is keep our insurance rates low, right? So Primex will eventually be made whole. So this should not count against us for an insurance claim. So these are all the things that we're out there doing, and making sure that we button up those loose holes. You'll see the detective's summary worksheet, gentlemen, in your background data. If you want to review that, if you have any questions afterwards, just let me know. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll move into the chief's items.
Please. It's the final one.
Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, the command staff conducted 2 internal FY19 budget reviews this past month for June 2019. And so far, we're coming in at just over 1% underspent. I will have an update for the assembled masses here. We'll go into a little bit more detail with our July assessment. So more good news. So stay tuned for that. After the presentations of the chief's items, there will be an FY19 budget review for the month ending June 2019. We'll actually go into the second week of July. So get you right up to speed on the police department budget and where we're at. Officer Chris Dustin has passed his final PT test before the start of the 189th New Hampshire Police Academy, and he and Officer Ben Church are now conducting PT on a regular basis to ready themselves for the rigors of the 180th, the 180th New Hampshire Police Academy, not the 189th, as I said a moment ago. The start date is to be determined, but should be sometime around 2 or 3 September. His PT test, or both officers' PT test for the academy, will be 19 August. That's what the captain was just informing me. In the meantime, both continue to work with Staff Sergeant Maloney and myself on their fitness regimes and basic training tasks and skills. Both officers are doing very well, and Ben Church continues to impress us with his skills and abilities. So I think the commission definitely gets kudos for taking the pick of the litter. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'd like to just also thank the captain and the chief for allowing me to witness the PT test for both of them recently.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome anytime. And as is everybody here. Come on, watch how we do things. Operations, in terms of police investigations and prosecutions, June was a heavy month for the Wolfeboro PD. The PD is still working some major investigations and major prosecutions. I expect that these matters will persist into the early fall. In terms of police prosecutions this past month, we saw 22 defendants who responded to 23 charges. Of those 23 charges, 12 were found guilty at trial, and 2 were found null prost, or 2 were null prost. Null prost just means withdrawn by the state. And there's a number of reasons why we do that. There may be a plea, there may be an issue with the case. Maybe the prosecutor determined that there needed to be further investigation. So that just simply means withdrawn. That doesn't mean not guilty. It means withdrawn, Latin for withdrawn. 9 defendants agreed to have their cases placed on file pending good behavior for 6 months or more, with diversion, education, and restitution components added to their sentence. The conviction rate this month is 100%, with approximately $4,893 in fines, penalties, and restitutions meted out. So, ladies and gentlemen, crime does not pay. Don't do it. Speed issues continue to be a problem in our community. We know this, and we heard it loud and clear the other night at the Route 28 Mumble Strip meeting. Please pay attention to the posted speed limits in our town roads. Speed complaints represent some of the most common quality of life issues we receive at the PD. Please be courteous to your friends and neighbors, and don't speed. We will be monitoring our roads very carefully. If you are speeding, please slow down. The life you save may be your own. That being said, the department is continuing its enhanced speed enforcement operations in the following areas: Forest Road, Cotton Valley Road, College Road, Beach Pond Road, with a focus on the area between Pine Hill Road, North Line Road, Center Street, North Main Street, 109 East, and Sewell Road. The reason these speed enforcement operations are being conducted is due to citizen complaints and data collected and analyzed by our radar trailers and our radar warning signs. We will continue our efforts in these areas until we are sure that the speeds have come down. If you travel these roads, please be mindful of the speed limits. As a reminder, we just arrested a speeder who was doing 75 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone on North Main Street. And no, she does not get the free set of steak knives. She does get a free bologna sandwich, though, at the county lockup. So please, word to the wise, don't speed. So the budget, gentlemen, we will go over that, but we are running straight and true right now, so stay tuned for an update at halftime. So for training this month, Staff Sergeant Maloney and Supervisor Lyons trained at NCIS training. And that was conducted for the FBI system through the state police. Pete Llewellyn went to an SRO meeting in Concord where they discussed and talked about the newest philosophies in school resource officer, and that conference is always good. A lot of good information comes out of there. Pete Llewellyn also attended emergency preparedness training this past month. Claire Briggs and Detective Emerson completed MDT training. That's for the mobile data terminals. Under dispatch, Supervisor Lyons and Sherry Moore went to NIBRS training and learning the new codes for reporting into the state and the FBI. So NIBRS is the National Information and Reporting System. That's basically how we report crimes to the FBI. So the same thing that we do at the state level when we send in our reports to the state, we do also at the federal level, and that's done through the NIBRS system. and that's how it's pronounced, 9 bores. Outreach and matters of interest, we conducted our annual open house in June. Approximately 200 to 300 folks showed up. Fun was had by all, and we will do it again next year. I think the weather kept a lot of people away. If you remember correctly, that weekend it was threatening severe thunderstorms and rainstorms. Both the captain and I conducted a department staff meeting, and we put out new guidance. Both the captain and I met with concerned citizens regarding a wide range of issues in community involvement topics, and that's something we do religiously throughout the course of every month. That comment will stay on there, and it happens all the time. In fact, I met with a young girl today who had some concerns about how she was treated in local business. So this is something that we do, and I think it's important for community policing. The captain and I spoke on Wolfeboro Community TV this past month, and the captain and I continue to be regulars at the men's breakfast meetings each month. I assisted our Parks and Rec team with the training of their FY19 staff. This is always a good time to see these young men and women in action, and I enjoy the training opportunity and a chance to meet our newest members to the town staff. So I look forward to that every year, and to those men and women, welcome aboard and welcome to Wolfeboro. I continue to serve on both the Governor's Committee for the Humane and Ethical Treatment of Animals and to serve on Senator Bradley's legislative committee seeking to strengthen the state's animal cruelty laws. And with that, I believe that the governor is going to sign Senate Bill 77 tomorrow. I will not be in attendance, but I believe he's going to sign that bill tomorrow. And that bill really goes a long way at shoring up a lot of the loopholes that contributed to not just our animal cruelty case here, but others that have occurred in Alexandria and Berlin and Croydon and some of the other areas. So I'm really happy to see that, and that is definitely a step in the right direction. So that's very good. The captain and I continue to be in attendance at all Board of Selectmen meetings. The captain continues to be part of the master planning process, the technical review process, and the joint loss committees, and I know he enjoys those thoroughly. Facetious. Lastly, please be our guest on Coffee and Connections with the Chief, and as always, the coffee's on me. And then safety tip of the month, school is now out. Watch out for our youngest and most vulnerable citizens, our youth and our future, and thank you, and please be safe to all. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll take a 5-minute break and move into budget.
1 second. How are we doing with jaywalking downtown this summer?
So that's a good question. I know the complaints have come in because I read them, I see them on Facebook. The number of offenses actually has been lower than years past. So we still continues to be a problem. We do have our pedestrian crosswalk safety grant out. I've been down there twice now. I saw Commissioner Balboni the other day as he was driving through. It continues to be a problem, and we continue to enforce the jaywalking statutes in town ordinances.
Okay, thank you. You wanted a 5-minute reset?
You want 5 minute? Take a 5-minute break, and we'll roll into a budget.
Sure. Okay, we're back in session after a brief 5-minute break.
Gentlemen, welcome back. I do want to, before I get into the budget, because there are some things that I think are probably going to be highlighted in your budget reports that you have. There are some overages and some lines that look like they're about to go over. And I just want to address those first. And you'll see them in the police budget, you'll see them in the dispatch budget, and not so much with the ACO, but the police and dispatch. And they're principally lines that typically have a problem with running over, one of which is always overtime. Then you'll see another line, other compensation, both the police and dispatch budgets. I just want to say that the folks in the corner office at the town hall, I know, have been working very hard, very diligently to get the union contracts loaded in. I had a great meeting today with the town manager and with the finance officer, and you know, they've given me the assurance that they're going to be loading in the union contract and populating those various line items, which is good. That's very comforting.
I thought I saw the journal entries last night.
Sir?
I thought I saw the journal entries to do that last night. Was that completed last night?
I don't know if it was. I don't know if it's been completed or not, but I do know they're working hard. And I got a very detailed status update on it this morning. First thing this morning. I was very happy. In fact, I was ecstatic. I've been beaming ever since because that is really important to do. It sets us up for success moving forward, and then obviously for the preparation of the 2020 budget. Right, those numbers just have to be accurate. So I know they've been working really hard to do that, and I appreciate it. So what that will do is it will have the effect of driving down some of those areas like other compensation that are close to being expended. The union contract and the monies associated with it actually populate about 7 to 9 different line items all the way through the budget, and actually in both budgets, not just the police, but the dispatch budget as well. And they hit a bunch of different areas to include things like even safety equipment and so forth and so on. So it's really important that we track that very carefully so we can see where we're going. And it's important for me when I'm briefing the commission and then members of the budget committee to brief accurate numbers, which is always something that I strive to do. So having said that, looking at the reports that went out in your packets, we were about, for the police department, we're about 0.54% underspent prior to any monies being added back in, which is just going to cause us to be a little bit more underspent than we normally are now. That's good. That's all good. The captain and I have some very strict budgetary controls in place, trying to make sure that if we are going to go over in an area like overtime, which is one of the usual suspects, if you will, that we have areas that we can make that up in, and that's why that is important. That's why those having the monies going in are so important. The other thing that will be important, although I haven't seen one yet, but I suspect I will shortly, are the revenue reports. The revenue reports are the way that we will take the revenue coming in from, say, highway safety, right, the grants, which are paid out initially out of the overtime line, and then would be offset against that. So that's an important tool to making sure it's basically the balancing between your debits and credits, right? And that revenue, those revenue reports are really very important. And it's a tool that we use that we can track an over expenditure if we know we have revenues that are going to be coming against that. So I feel very confident right now that the police department budget itself is doing very well overall, and I think is going to get a little bit healthier once they load in the warrant article 23. Dispatch budget a little bit tighter than we would want, not quite as robust as the police department, but we're hovering somewhere between a 1% and 2% underspent. So I'm a little closer and a little bit more concerned with dispatch, and we're monitoring that much closer and have more stringent budgetary controls on the dispatch budget. Now and of course ACO, where no issues there whatsoever. Overall, all three budgets, I think the police department is doing very well. And it's likely that we're going to come in underspent again at the end of this year, and that's through a variety of different reasons. It's still too far out for me to predict where we're going to be. I don't know. I will tell you that relative to our police dispatch console, we had a number of those controller boards fail. And we've been working very closely with Motorola and two-way communications to get those repaired. The good news is that the system should be up and running as it was before by Friday COB. The workarounds have been working in place, and there's been no lapse in communication. But this, again, highlights the need for the CIP item for the dispatch console. We were told a couple of years ago that the dispatch console is likely to fail within 5 years, and this is an indication of that. Having said that, we are probably looking at a fairly significant repair bill somewhere just to the north of $6,000. Now, fortunately, we have the money in both the police and the dispatch budgets to cover that. I'm not particularly worried about that expense. I don't want to have to pay that if I don't have to, but in this particular case, it was inevitable. Having said that, gentlemen, I will open it up to questions from the floor. Mr. Selectman, do you have a question, sir?
I had a question about these control boards. Are you guys looking at ordering some maintenance spares, from the supplier? God forbid you lose another one. You don't want to get in a situation where you have a manufacturer discontinued console, which you've told us. You know that things starting to break. You call, you get a control board. You need another one, and they say we ain't got any left. I mean, are you going to hoard some maintenance spares in the event of a what happens event?
So that is something that we spoke about. Unfortunately, this is the last set of refurbished boards that Motorola has. This system that we're using has been outdated for about 8 years. There really are no repair parts left in the system for this. This is, again, why this is critical.
I'm going to assume that's a statement of fact. There are no maintenance spares for the police console
So
anywhere to be found in the continental United
that is a statement of fact. Please let me continue real quick. What we're doing is Motorola is we're purchasing the last boards that they have. After this, there are no more for anybody. Once that happens, they'll take our broken boards and they will attempt to refurbish those. I suspect that they will be successful, and that will leave one set in the system. Beyond that, there are no more. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I just want to get it on the record that we don't have any maintenance spares out there to get, and if we have a catastrophe, we're in deep stuff.
That's correct.
And we just got to make sure that is in fact a fact. And if it is what it is.
That is indeed correct. I wish there was another option. Now, if this system, knock on wood, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen the way you predict. But let's assume that it does. Let's assume we get a year down the road and the boards fail again. Well, we do what we're doing right now. We get two-way communications, and we get Motorola, and we do a workaround, which is what we've done. And then we take the bad boards out and we send them back that have failed. We send them back and we say, rebuild these. And then we manage the situation as carefully as we can. So far, the good news is the boards failed. We were able to get everything up and running with zero lapse in communication. And we were able to cover the expense of the repairs through the normal budgetary process. So I think all in all,
in your capital reserve right now, Mark, or
I have no idea.
102.
That
much?
102,000.
100 grand?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how much do you need to replace the console?
It's in between.
350, 400,000 in that neighborhood.
So I think the strategy last year was to put away whatever you put away.
That's correct.
Right. So when you go to the budget committee for a cap reserve, you're going to want to make sure that you have an increment in there.
Yep.
Okay. That's going to be important to start thinking about at the budget level. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The combined number for the dispatch budget is $532,000, and the police budget is approximately,
2.1.
2.1 million.
627.
So you're talking, you know, somewhere in that neighborhood. The 2020 budget for both is probably going to be very similar. There may be some, you know, increases due to union negotiations and so forth that be put in, but we haven't looked at the 2020 budget just yet. You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions relative to the budget recap? Good. Discussion. At this time, I will entertain a motion to enter into non-public session. Excuse me, before I do that, I would like to make a correction. We had talked about the meeting for next month in August being on Thursday, the 22nd. It will in fact be on its regular date of August 15th. Thursday, August 15th will be the next Police Commission meeting. Did you have a question? Sure.
Yes, sir. Sure. So that's a great question, and I get asked that from time to time. So I'll take the second part of the question first. In terms of whether it's going to be a separate building or it's going to be a combined building, that's really a policy decision that has to occur at the selectman level. So that's still being studied. I know that's being studied. I know there's a number of options out there looking at what would work, what would fit various options. And right now, I still think it's way too early to make a determination. There's still a lot of data that has to come in. People have to analyze it. So from that standpoint, but I think it's in good hands. Relative to everything that am aware of and have been privy to, everything is still running straight and true with the plan, which is to start construction in 2022. The various vendors that have been involved in the design process and the potential construction process have weighed in, and I know Matt Sullivan and the town manager are working very hard with them, trying to move the process along. Nothing has changed from that, Mark. That's correct. That is correct, sir. That's correct, sir. That'll be a board, as far as I know, that'll be a Board of Selectmen decision. I mean, I think there'll be input from various other boards and committees, but that's a Board of Selectmen decision. That's policy level. Yes. Well, when you say development plans, I don't know what you mean, but I've weighed in very heavily on the design concept of what the building should look like. You have a copy of that. You do. And the rest of the commissioners, the commissioners have a copy of that. That went out in an email.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Those designs that were done by the architect obviously are just one possibility. They're renderings, but no determination has been made if both agencies will stay on that one property and make renovations, if one or both will move off the property and they'll use that property for...
also,
Things
please
coming
understand.
down the pike yet. It's still being looked at by various people.
Well, I haven't heard anything like that. That would really not be at my level. I'm not tracking on anything like that. Before I address that a little bit further, the one thing I would say is that I just, not to be vague, but I'm not privy, and please understand, nor will I comment about where the town is looking to put a public safety building, because one, that's not my place. That, again, those are policy-level decisions. I do know the town is working very hard to try to figure out what that is going to look like. Is it going to be a public safety building? Is it going to be a police building? So forth and so on, and all the other details. So rest assured that the town officials, the Board of Selectmen, and others are really working hard at that. I can't emphasize that enough. In the second thing that you brought up in terms of the cost, yes, the cost is, it's expensive, right? I mean, the numbers that you quoted are not, I think, out of range. But please understand, there's a number of different ways to deal with those numbers, right, and to bring them down. There's a, we're only as, as clever as our own imagination, but there's a number of ways to I think, drive that cost down. I think one of the simplest ways to do it is to, when you look at the figure, right, the $300 per square foot construction figure, you can look at construction costs. You can look at different methods. You can bring that number down. So there are different things that we can do. So I wouldn't get too wrapped around the axle. If people right now are panicking over a $5 million or a $12 million price tag, okay, I get it, I understand, but that's way off in the distance, and that's a big, there are more important things to worry about than that at this point. At the end of the day, I think our policymakers do a good job of making decisions and keeping the budget low and keeping things, fairly steady and standard. I'm perfectly fine with whatever decisions that they make. I see no reason for anybody to be alarmed, to be concerned. Now, certainly in terms of, if you will, kicking the can down the road and pushing it out, sure, those are options. But remember, when you do that, right, you're going to incur a greater cost because building prices and materials and labor increases every year. So, obviously, if we had a spare $12 million kicking around, it would be cheaper to buy a chunk of property somewhere and build a building today. You would save a tremendous amount of money. I mean, that's just fact. So, kicking the can down the road may sound like a good idea, but it's usually generally bad. And I think the increase in cost is usually about 3% per year.
What you're hearing, is it more a matter of communication with the community or a lack of information getting to them?
So here's what I would say, straight and true, right? We're running straight and true with the plan. I think it's way too early to even discuss costs. It's nice to have a ballpark figure out there, but I'll be honest with you. Right, I get it. Right, I get it, but here's the thing. This is going to change, the cost is going to change 15 times. But here's the finer point that I want to bring up. when we talk about costs, right, we don't even know what the building is really going to look like at this point. This is way, way too early. It's great to have an idea. This is just way, way too early. Yeah, sure, 5 million or 12 million puts us in a ballpark, but what state is that ballpark in? Is it in Massachusetts? Is it in Montana? I don't even know what state we're in. So from that perspective, you see what I'm getting at? I mean, this is really, really, these are really preliminary numbers. If somebody is losing sleep over this, they ought not to. They ought not to. There are bigger things to worry about than this. It's not. It is. That's correct. I agree. No, I don't want to discourage it either, but I don't want people, here's what I don't want. I don't think people should panic over this, right? I don't think people should be running around with their hair on fire over what could be a $12 million price tag. If you do that, you're going to die an early death. Here's what I would say from being a plans guy from the military, right? And I'm famous for saying this, no plan ever survives first contact, okay? And you know what, I got news for you, this one won't either, all right? But that's okay. We have a plan. A plan is a great thing to have because when everything goes sideways, the plan gives you something to get back onto. We'll make changes, we'll make adjustments. The policymakers will always, and these gentlemen up here, will always make good decisions. I'm convinced of that. I'm very positive. I think we will get at the cost of the building. I think the cost of the building will come down. I think that we shoot for a 2022 construction deadline. Whether it happens in 2022 or 2023 will be a decision made by people above my pay grade. But I think at the end of the day, it'll all work out, and it will be just fine. And it probably won't cost $12 million, and life will be good. Thank you. Everything I just told you. It is. Everything is running straight and true. There's been no deviation from course.
I think, Ron, just kind of to simplify it a bit too, and I'm going by my experience in building the church. We had a committee, and we vetted general contractors, we vetted architects, we chose accordingly, and we built a $5 million building in less than a year. Quite a nice building. We're a little ways out, obviously, time-wise, with regard to the final plan, but it affords the agencies within the town that are looking into this to formulate the plan or to formulate different plans to put before the public. So the public will know when it's time for them to know, once things all come together, here's what we've come up with, here are your options, vote what you think is the best one, kind of thing. We could be spitballing here forever trying to, I understand their questions, that they're very valid questions, but we're still 3 years out. And
Can I weigh in on this?
Sure.
Okay, can I weigh in with you, Ron? Can I weigh in on this? Okay, so there's a team of folks who have been running a little committee activity. Selectman Senical, I think, is chairing it, and the police folks are on it, and others. And so to answer your direct question, I'll put it to you this way. The chief of police knows as much as the rest of that committee knows. Everybody's all clued in. No secrets. Nothing. The question in front of us is going to be, and it isn't 5 or 12, the number on the table is 12. Let's just get that out there. It's 12. And from a planning point of view, we're sitting here, at Town Hall, and we're looking out the window, and we're seeing capital projects, that are coming before us, and forget about the electric company because they pay for their own bills, or forget about the sewer department because they pay for their own bills. But we see these other capital projects coming at us, and, I'm raising my hand and I'm saying, how are we going to pay for all this stuff? It's either going to be pushing up the tax rate, or we're going to have to go out and float bonds. And then I ask the question that says, well, what's our debt service coverage, and when does our bond rating start going to hell in a handbasket? And we need to have that conversation because we are approaching a point where we have to really think seriously about our debt service rating, the cost to borrow money, right? And we have John Burt, who has gone out and done some research across the United States and looked at Moody's and how Moody's rates different cities and towns for how much they take out and how that money is balanced against either your general fund or against your tax base. So we got some things to think about. Does that mean that this project is in jeopardy? No, it does not. It's still on the record as 2022. But we got a lot of thinking about because there's a lot of other things that when we add the 12 to other things that are in front of us, we're quickly running north of 20 million of capital that needs to get spent in a period of time. I saw your jaw drop. And we need to then think about how we sequence that stuff together. Recognizing, as you've said, and I think the chief said, and the fire chief has also said, the building that they're in is probably past its useful life. It needs something. And so then the question is where, how, when? And the when is still 2022. So I've exhausted everything I know on the subject. I don't think that's the way I'd characterize it. I think the way I'd characterize it is we're running this place like a professionally managed operation, and we know what needs to get fixed, and we're trying to figure out how we pay for it. That's the way I'd do it. We're not playing baseball here. What we're really trying to do, Ron, is understand whether we're going to go to the taxpayers and we're going to say, your rates are going up a bunch, or whether we're going to go to the banks and say, we need to borrow money, and they're going to say, you've maxed out the card, which we haven't done. Well, that's what we're trying to figure out now, and we'll figure that out hopefully with the Budget Committee. But back to your direct question, the chief knows exactly what everyone else in that committee knows. And there are some conversations they've had in the committee, which I'm not party to, it's not a question of privy, that talk about different locations. Frankly, we're not going to talk about that because when you do, the price goes up of the locations you're looking at. So, there's conversations going around about, what could be done. How'd we do? We do okay? Okay.
Yeah, I was waiting for the other commissioner, but we can go ahead and... I will entertain a motion to enter into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3 for the purpose of discussing personnel issues. Do I have that motion? Yes. Made by Commissioner Balboni, seconded by Commissioner Wood.
Any questions?
I will poll the commission. Commissioner Balboni? Yes. Yes. Commissioner Wood is yes. Commissioner O'Brien obviously will abstain. We stand in non-public session. Recess. Thank you, Alyssa.
Bye-bye, neighbor.